That's my kind of crazy.
So, Will, you there?
Yep.
Don't use your mute. It says it's muted. I don't know why. But
It's not muted.
oh, okay.
I hear you.
Yeah, don't use mute. It really screws up if I have to edit off the Zoom audio track. I don't know why, but here we go. Hey, everybody. It's an episode of No Driving Gloves again. Kind of going a little bit old school tonight. I've got Will as a co-host. Derek should be jumping in a little bit, finishing up a meeting. And I asked this guy back as far as probably episode 10 or 12 if he would want a guest on No Driving Gloves. And he gave me some critique and feedback. And I'll be honest, I didn't listen. And I should take down that episode that he told me to at that point. I think it's like episode 8, the TNA episode, because the audio quality is horrible. Don't go back and listen to it. But we've got Bryan Fuller from Fuller Moto, Fuller Hot Rods, Big Bore Welding or Full Bore Welding and Full Bore Sheet Metal books, everything through fullermoto.com. I think you can pick up all of that stuff there, and kind of waiting for you to get a couple of new shirts because this COVID belly's made me outgrow the last one I got from you. So how are you doing tonight, Bryan?
Oh man, it's a beautiful day down in Tampa, Florida. We just started kind of back into Car Fix. It's on Motor Trend. We're filming this week. So yeah, it's been a good week.
Yeah, I knew a lot of that stuff and TV production, everything, trying to get the world back to some sort of normalcy, I guess is how everybody wants to say it. I even had a Morticia Adams thing on Facebook today. That was a memory from 6 or 7 years ago that remember your definition of normal is different than the other guy's definition of normal or something like that. And Morticia Adams is probably the fully knowledgeable person there. Really reached out to you again this week, and I told Will that last time I had talked to you was almost a year to the day, according to my text messages, because we were talking about getting you on the show. And I'm going to jump right into this, and it's Fuller Moto related. You had an Instagram post, I think that's where I see most of your activity, a couple of weeks ago, and I haven't followed up too much on it. Did you guys just opened up a new type of body shop or paint shop, did you not, over there in Atlanta?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I grew up painting. I painted my first car in 8th grade, and I painted. I went to Wyotech, went through collision refinishing. I painted at SoCal and Foos Design when I lived in LA. And man, I don't know if it's just Chip burned me out, sanding on the bottom of fenders until 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. That was probably it. Sanding, literally my fingers bleeding and overhauling, just working crazy late nights and long hours sanding, and I lost it. It's just like
when you start doing body filler and body work to the backs of the bumpers, I guess.
Oh, the underside of the car, all of the inside of the fender wells, the bottom of the transmission, the top of the transmission. I mean, everything was perfectly gapped, for those Riddler competitions. And it's crazy.
So
yeah, it sucks. It sucks bad.
Will accidentally fell into that a couple of years ago with his dart. You said his first indoor show he went to with the green dart of his. They ended up getting a grade 8 and contended. But
nice.
Did you lose out to Foos that year?
Yeah, we did. We lost to the Imposter, and Chip actually said it was on another podcast. He said that the green dart, the car we built, should have won. And I'm like, no, he didn't say that. And I went and listened to it. Sure enough, he did. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty crazy.
Did you send your UPS address so he can send the trophy over?
Yeah. He ain't gonna do that, I promise.
But what I got out of your new body shop, Bryan, is a question I have, because I get the question asked a lot with my consulting business and just being a car guy everywhere. You're not doing collision repair. You're doing kind of that, correct me if I'm wrong, you're painting cars for people, for the guy that has say, you know, I don't know, 76 Monte Carlo that he needs a paint job on, a nice Monte Carlo, not what I used to remember from high school, or just a car he need, you know, it's a great car, it runs and drives, but you know, the clear coats fell off of it or something. That's kind of, is that what you're kind of specializing or reaching out to help those people out, or are you actually doing kind of collision work to the classic cars that succumb?
No, we're going to be more, we're going to do more high end, you know, kind of full overall paint jobs. So it's just hard to get anybody to do all the work. You know, it's just such hard work sanding a full car. As you know, Will, I mean, you do a Riddler car, then you get it. And, you know, all the sanding and the filler and the surfacing, you know, the gapping, that's all involved. It's all the prep work. You know, pulling the trigger and just getting the paint done is the easy part by that, at that stage. So yeah, with that, it's more overalls, you know.
Yeah, it was just, you know, it's just one of those things that I can't, another podcast co-host in the Birmingham area, or host in the Birmingham area, Rob Conrad with Chasing Cars with Rob Conrad. He's a radio DJ who his side gigs the podcast. He sent me a message the other day. He runs a wedding car service and has a couple of 50s era Packards, and one of them needs the paint refreshed on. And he goes, you know, the guys you're working with, you know, I'm contracted with a company right now and working with them, but I'm kind of thinking I'm going to probably end up recommending you. You know, he's seeing if he wants to give your shop a call and see if that'll take care of it. I just wanted to make sure that was kind of what the thinking was. And hopefully a few people who listen to this, we've got, you know, being Southeast based, we get a lot of listeners in Atlanta and, you know, Alabama and that would be potentially your clientele. And I think some of them could even afford your work. So.
Absolutely. Will, how was your, tell us about your paint experience with the Hornet?
Oh, the dart.
The dart, sorry.
Oh, I mean, it's absolutely, it's a brutal thing you go through. You know, I mean, we put ourselves through it too. But yeah, you know, the floor pans have to be wet sanded and buffed. Inside the quarter panels have to be wet sanded and buffed. The door jambs, you know, and it's not just your exterior gap you have to worry about. You have to worry about your interior gap. You know, when your door's closed, it's got to be a perfect gap. And you don't run windlace on a Riddler car because that's hiding something. So, you know, you have to mud your interior gaps, your exterior gaps. You know, the gap from the transmission to the floor pan. And it's just, it's absolutely brutal putting yourself through that. Of course, when you're all said and done and you finally pulling the trigger, painting it's, you know, you look back and you go, wow, we done a lot of work. And we probably body worked on that car. I think there were 4 of us full time for 5 months. Yeah. And there wasn't, but I know this is going to sound crazy to some people, but there wasn't but like 4 gallons of filler in that entire car. Everything was pretty well metal finished, you know. 4 gallons of filler in a Riddler car is nothing, you know. I mean,
4 gallons on a roof.
Right. We actually just painted a 66 Cadillac today. Actually, we started yesterday and finished today. It's red.
That's a big.
Yeah, and it's candy, red candy. And I don't know. We've been body working on this thing for a while too. It's not a Riddler car. It's going to debut at SEMA. It was.
Mike, whenever I worked with Chip, you know, we worked on 2 of them, and I watched the Grandmaster happen over there nearly daily, which would have been 3. And, you know, later on, I don't know, it seemed like a year ago, I talked to him. I was like, dude, you can have that shit. Like, I don't need it. I don't want it. You know, like, I want to undercoat the bottom of the car, and I want the guy to drive it and enjoy it. You can take the awards. You can win all the shows. You know, I just don't, it's just not, the reason that I build a car is not to win a show. In fact, I very, very rarely have ever entered any shows that I go to, whether it's car or motorcycle, over the years, because it just always felt like a disappointment. You know what I mean? Like, I wait around, I feel like I'm trying to make sure everybody doesn't think I'm a jerk, so they don't vote against me and say my car sucks. You know, I worry and stress, and I'm like, man, I just want to build a car, give it to somebody, let them enjoy it, have a good time with it, and, you know, move on with my life.
Yeah. I'm still caught up into the show, and I'm pretty hardcore. So we got we've got an Impala that we had out at Grand National Roadster Show in bare metal, and it's one of those that now it's not going quite the Riddler level. So the bottom side's not got to be crazy or nothing like that. But I'm the only way I'd build another Riddler car is if somebody comes to the shop and they say, "Look, I want to build a Riddler car," and I'm going to be like, "All right, A, there's no timeline, and B, there's no budget." And
yeah.
I mean, who's going to do that? There not very many people. So
is that why you ran out of California, Bryan, and headed to Atlanta? I know your website says you did it for the wife's family, but is it I'm going to be my own boss and I'm going to build the cars that I want? Or I'm sure it's a
the main reason,
combination.
I was tired of LA anyway. You know, it's just too big. And, you know, Chip was amazing. He was a great guy to work for, and just a great team. And I learned so much on every facet of the car industry and made so many friends. But, you know, at the end of the day, I'm a small town kid. I grew up in the South, and I just I was done with not having a yard and not having a dog. And, you know, the houses were $1 million. You know, it never snows. It's never hot. You know what I mean? You're like, I just need some change, you know. God.
Some people think it's great. And, you know, I'm from the Midwest, Central Illinois, and even, you know, Birmingham at least gets a little bit of season change, but it's still not enough. I mean, we're either summer or we're the 3 weeks of winter, and there's, you know, none of the nice transition seasons. And I kind of know what you're talking about, you know, because I never went California. I was always afraid of California because of, well, all the regulations and the laws. I don't understand how it's such a great car state and they don't let you do anything. Where, you know, I went to DC and, you know, everything was expensive. Everything was jam packed and all that. It was kind of nice to come here to Birmingham, and it's kind of the best of both worlds. A few more people, a couple more dollars. And, you know, I have a backyard and I have dogs, and, you know, I pay $1 a square foot for the warehouse space I have. So, I mean, I can't complain too much about being here, which will lead me into another question, because, you know, you came back to, or you started in Atlanta, what year? Like 08, 09 you came back?
Yeah.
Or so
6, 8, 7, 8, somewhere in there. I don't know. I've been there about
remember. And you've built some pretty impressive things. And you can, what do I want to say? Grown. And just last fall, was it? Or last summer, you kind of had a moving party and tore down a shop, built a shop, or what was?
Yeah, we moved into a new place. It was the old FAF, the old Ferrari Alpha Fiat location just north of town, kind of over by Stone Mountain. And the funny thing is, it's this little motorhead cul-de-sac, you know, that I had no idea even existed in Atlanta. And come to find out, it's kind of this famous little car cul-de-sac. And this old Ferrari dealership, you know, back in the day, you know, there are stories of $10 million today's Testarossas, you know, pictures of those coming out of the garage door that we have our showroom in now. You know, there's stories of helicopters landing in the cul-de-sac, which is right next to residential, and, you know, dudes picking up their Ferraris. And of course, all the kids who are now adults in Atlanta, like, oh, my dad took me to dream Ferraris in this building. And so, we're doing what is pretty fun. We're doing what I call, kind of a building resto mod. So, a modern Ferrari or Porsche dealership has obviously all of the design and the panache, it takes to lure in these big fish and get them to spend a big pile of money and take it away from their wives' kitchens. And, but in the old days, I mean, this street's like down from when you turn, there's a concrete factory that's right on the end of the street. Back then it was just different. So we're putting in steel beams and painting all the beams red, really bringing in all the Ferrari kind of motif and make people, when they come into the shop, like, yeah, man, I could really see this as an old Ferrari dealership, when really it didn't look like that at all.
That's cool.
It's kind of, I guess we met through the museum, and that kind of always into the history and the buildings to the cars to, I just love things that can tell a story, no matter, how it's changed. And Go ahead.
I got in there. I'm like, there's got to be, when we took over the building, I'm like, there's got to be something left over, And on top of the offices, we were gutting it and renovating it because it was just terrible. And I get up and I crawl up above the bathroom. There's this hidden room, and there's red paint everywhere. And I'm like, oh, yes. Now we've got some archaeology. Here we go. This is going to be it. And I see a Ferrari logo, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be it. And I'm all excited. And it's like, and I get it down, and it's this cheap, shitty 70s wood stanchion, with a vinyl Ferrari logo on it, and I'm like, are you serious?
And then you called up Geraldo Rivera and discussed opening Al Capone's vault, right?
And
hey, looks like Derek's here.
Maybe,
Derek?
I think.
Yeah, so what? I'm here.
Are you catching
I'm
up?
the one guy here that Bryan doesn't know.
Well, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Bryan.
Derek lives in the middle of nowhere and has hit or miss internet, and that's why we don't have video from him a lot of the time. But
thought even the country had internet.
He's a skinny, bald dude that always wears a red shirt. So there you go.
Hey. No, we're done wearing the red shirts, man. Come on. We're done with that.
I was going to say, all Corvettes are red, according to the book.
Well, the Corvettes are, but that doesn't mean the staff has to be, all right?
And Ferraris.
That's right.
That's true. Yeah. Those new Ferraris are looking a lot like the new Corvettes. I think they need to stop copying Corvette. So it's a pleasure to have you on the show, Bryan. And I was just kind of listening in because I know Will and John, and listening to some of the conversations. But I've seen a lot of your work out there, and obviously these two have talked about you. So it's awesome to have you on the show and hear a little bit about what you do and why you do it.
It's a good fun living a car life. It's
good
get up
work.
in the morning. I usually get in either hop on a fast 75 horse, 300 pound bike that is just a Vitpillen. You know what that is, 701 Vitpillen. I hop on that thing and haul ass into work, or I get in my ultra slow big 462 powered 67 Lincoln 2-door and roll in slow. So
I've been watching you do a little bit of Instagram work on that one too, following you and getting the children involved on that one.
Yeah, my son is 10, so I'm actively trying to subtly corrupt all the neighborhood kids into being car guys. There's gonna be a hot spot of car guys coming out of my neighborhood because I'm just slowly infecting them with the disease.
Well, we talk about that on the podcast quite often, getting kids back into cars and the car world. And we kind of have come up with a theory, and this will lead into a question. You directly can tell me I'm crazy. But a lot of what I find is there's a lot of kids that are building and doing their shop work and learning about cars through their video games. And did you guys, or Fuller built the Double Down, which is now in Forza. Does that help, do you think? Maybe your son fall into the interest, hey, you know, dad built this car and now it's in a video game, or do you let him play Forza? Or?
Man, I know it's pretty cool experience to have a car that, you know, you built and your son can customize it. So he took the Double Down, which for those of you who don't know is a all-wheel drive 950 horse natural in a naturally aspirated crazy hot rod with NASCAR slicks, and you know, he's customized it with like a chrome body, black wheels, and you know, the detail that they did on that car is just amazing. I mean, most cars, it's like, you know, they scan it, they import it in, and that seems pretty impressive on its own. But kind of similar to a motorcycle with that car, you know, you see the fuel tank in the back with the pumps just hanging out of the back of the car. There are rivets everywhere. The interior of the car has just exposed beams and aluminum and bolts. I mean, there's so much shit going on in that thing. And I mean, they nailed it. I mean, it looks exactly like the car.
Well, do you think?
Wait, hang on, John, because I got a question, because you know, Bryan just brought up the fact that, you know, he built the car. He kind of had the creative license, if you will, over this car, and it goes into the video game, and now his son is customizing it. So I want to get his take on how does he feel about his son customizing his custom work.
I love it. I think it's awesome. I mean, you know, I feel like.
Did your son do it better?
Well, you know, there's a lot of betters, and you know, with him, he doesn't have a customer, and there's always that where, you know, if you said, hey, what would you do, and who cares about the customer, that's fine. But at the end of the day, you know, we've got a 38 Studebaker pickup, Coupe Express is what they called it, which is funny, that we're working on, supercharged, vintage McCullough supercharger on it. And man, I mean, you know, when you're trying to get a color with a customer, sometimes it's easy, you know, it's like red, like, oh yeah, red, we're doing red. And sometimes with this thing, it's like, I kind of like blue, and like, I'm thinking about titanium. And he goes, yeah, I could see the titanium. And then I start thinking about the titanium more. I do renderings. I'm like, screw the titanium, terrible idea. And that was my idea, you know? So now I'm like, we're back around to blue. And so I'm like, it's torturous sometimes.
That sounds like that Impala that we're doing. Dude, we battled color on that thing. It was, you know, it was blue, and then it was green, and then it was bronze, and, you know, it was every color under the sun, and now it all kind of came back to green. And I'm like, why do all these, the really high-end cars we build, why they got to be damn green, you know? But, yeah, it fits the car, looks good, and customer loves it. So, green it is.
Cato's doing a kind of green interior at the shop on his personal 32 coupe. And I gave him all this shit about him, like, this baby crap, puke, green, really? That's going to be so out of style in 20 years. Oh, it's going to look horrible. I mean, that's what the color of the building was. We moved into this Ferrari place from 1971. And, you know, next thing you know, I bought a 67 Lincoln with the exact same color interior. I'm like, you know, now I'm eating my words. Like, how'd that happen?
That's how it goes, ain't it? Oh.
There's supposedly psychology behind car colors in the economy, and green's supposed to be popular in a downturn in the economy, but unfortunately, I don't think a downturn in the economy translates to customers for you guys. So there's got to be a whole nother story where we're going greens there.
Well, is that because the color green reminds people of money that they don't have during the downturn? Is that
it's
why you things that are green?
Green and browns are the popular colors, so there could be something to what those represent. Yes.
You would think they wouldn't want to see the color of green because all the money that they've just blown away on these high-end hot rods.
Hey, it's not blown. It's art.
It is art. That's true.
There you go.
Rolling art.
I've wanted to ask you, Bryan, for a while, and leaving the museum and that, I don't get to see you as often as I used to. But the Futuristic 2029 that you built, I'm really taken with this motorcycle. You really got into some of, where I think it's cutting edge in the hot rod custom motorcycle world, while you're replicating, a quote, 100-year-old motorcycle, the Majestic. And I think you even said the Nera car, which I saw in the Facebooks from the Barber Museum. They just finished their Nera cars, so you can go back and see all that hub-centric steering stuff. What did Haas just give you a go? Did they have a concept? Did they, how did the idea behind this thing come? And then I really would like to talk a little about the titanium 3D printing and, how you even all of a sudden pop up these ideas and if they were dreams that can be reality.
Haas, who has the Haas Moto Museum in Dallas, he's got 20,000 square feet, and he's about the only and the biggest, collector who's gone in on customs, which to me is like so ridiculous that so few people are grabbing up this American art form. You can go buy $15,000 just incredible bikes, left and right. And, speaking of Mr. Barber, I mean, I've been trying to convince them to do a custom wing for years, but, it's just not his passion. And, in my mind, it's a loss in the motorcycle industry within that beautiful museum. But at the end of the day, the real way that thing started was that Revival had done a kind of a bike built on the Majestic because Haas was such a fan of it. And they ended up doing this like strip naked, kind of 6-cylinder Honda powered. Wasn't that 6-cylinder Honda powered? Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. That was naked, barely anything. I'm like, that's not what the Majestic was. The Majestic was a fully fared covered bike. You know what I mean? And in my mind, it just wasn't what Haas was after. And again, that's just my own personal, idea. So I pitched Haas on it, and he was like, yeah, let's do it. And, I pitched him on the printing, not really knowing who to do it, how much it would cost, and, how extensive we could go or if we could even get it done. And it's 3D metal printing. And so I started working with this. So we did the deal. I went to Orlicon, this metal printing company, and they decided they would help us out and, give us a smoking deal on it. And it's crazy. I mean, there's like $150,000 worth of printing on this bike.
Wow.
And, it's sick technology. I mean, we would, design kind of the elements. There's a great video on Fuller Moto on our YouTube or on our website. Go check it out that we made. We design these elements and they go straight to print. I mean, it just comes out of the damn printer. No molding, no casting, no grinding. I mean, it's just crazy. It just comes out. It just shows up out of the box like you ordered it on Amazon.
It's I'm big into 3D printing, and I've got a couple 3D printers here in my office, and wish I had more time to play with it. And I've always said it's going to be kind of like that. You'll go to Amazon, and instead of ordering something, you'll order this CAD model or this SVG file and take that, pop it in your printer, and 5-6 hours, a day later, you'll have whatever you wanted to order. And I've done that with iPhone stands and some of the camera mounts I use and things like that, where I need this thing, and you just go get the file off the internet, and then you can tweak it to exactly what you want. And that's one of the things I liked about 3D printing. But the stuff that you did, I don't know, it's interweaved and spirally, and I don't know if it would even be possible with casting and such. And where did you design the bike and go, hopefully we can do this, or design it and go, I've got a fallback in case this doesn't work? Or
Well, I didn't have a fallback, and it was a risk, but I mean, at the end of the day, if you're going to push boundaries, you're going to take risks, and that's just the way it goes.
I was going to say that exactly. You don't get to where you are by being conservative. I mean, from the Futuristic to the hand engraved, or the engraved bike that you brought out to Vintage Festival a couple of times, and seen it, Barber. Did you do all the engraving on that, or did you have that done? Or
no, Tay Herrera did that in California. But just a little quick finish, if you don't mind, on that 2029. What it really, you guys were talking about how I felt about the electronics, and at the end of the day, I mean, I feel like however you can get people to go from that dream state of, I'd like to build something, and taking those steps to where, even if it's just like, I'm going to break, a boring, in my mind, floor panel, put it into my old hot rod and fix it, instead of, calling somebody. I mean, a funny example, I had a buddy call me, send me a text, hey, could you shorten this table by an inch? And I'm like, is it wood or steel? And he goes, it's steel. And I was like, so why don't you just go buy like a $10 hacksaw and just saw it off? And he goes, could I do that? I'm like, you're 6'9". I'm like, yeah. I'm like, dude, if you screw it up, just call me, I'll fix it. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, good God.
you did complicate it and tell him that he had to take a half inch off each side, though, right?
God. But anyway,
I'm trying to figure out why he wanted to take an inch off of it if he's 6'9". Wouldn't he need to add an inch or two?
I never thought about that. That's a good point.
I was thinking lengthwise to fit into the room or the dining room or something, but I guess height makes more sense there.
I know. Yeah, that is weird. His wife's tall too.
Might be for their dogs.
There you go.
Well, now we're all sitting here and pondering in thought.
Yeah.
And the Majestic you also did, it's an electric bike too, which is, very controversial and very radical, especially with Harley going into electric bikes and that. But I think when you're trying to build something 10 years into the future, like you did this bike, that leans to, you're either going to do it CNG or you're going to do it electric. And then the thought process, how you came to that one.
Well, the electric to me, it was a zero, and there's a lot of great places for electric. But doing a Riddler car or doing a bike that's meant for specifically as an art piece, you're able to do things differently. And there were quite a few of my peers that had been building bikes, and Haas has been, kind of pushing that limit in that he does it for the art, and we all do it for the art. But at the end of the day, everything that I built through my entire life and career has been with the intent of, you take it to shows for a year, whatever. And then after that, you put it on the road, you get it dirty, you beat it up, and then use the shit out of it. And hopefully down the road, somebody else has to, repaint, reupholstery, and say, damn, that was a nicely built car and it's got a shit ton of miles on it. But when you're specifically, like, look at Ed Roth cars, you know what I mean? If you specifically build cars or bikes with just the intent of art, and you skip, who cares how good it drives, you're able to do the art and the kind of wow factor into a whole nother level. It makes it hard to compete when you're trying to build a car that somebody actually uses.
Absolutely.
And I built that bike with the intention of art, without the intention of actual riding, even though it's, you can ride it. But it's not why it was built. It was built to freak people out, mess up their head, explore technology, and just do it for the art,
I mean, I really, I'm somebody who's always believed in, drive it, use it, that's the way a car was designed. You know, you go back to the $10 million, $20 million, or whatever they are, Ferrari Testarossas of the day, the, you know, pontoon fenders and that, and people, why do you race them? Why do you run them? Well, that's the art they were designed to do, is, you know, to see them move, to see them run and hear them run. And, you know, that's part of your artistic creation. And obviously with the futuristic and some of these other things that are built, they're designed to be static art, like a Van Gogh, and, you know, sit pretty in the garage or on your lift in your car bubble and be, you know, be a coffee table, as long as you use a coaster so you don't scuff up the fender that you've spent hours sanding for chip. But
yeah.
Yeah, my first question for any customers, what do you plan on doing with your car? You know, do you plan on driving it, or do you plan on showing it? Because it's a totally different car that you're going to build. I got a Model A coming in that he goes, if it pulls off and on the trailer, that's all I care about. I want an ICA show car. And I'm like, all right, well, that's good to know going in. We can make the gaps a lot tighter. We can get crazy with some stuff, and it doesn't really matter. And he goes, exactly, that's what I want. And I'm like, okay. You know, is that what I would build myself? No, not at all. But that's what this man wants, and, you know, that's what we're going to give him.
Well, there's definitely some, you know, there's some good spots of that where you're just not as worried that they're going to, you know, take it out and thrash it so much. I'm always torn by the customers that don't really drive them that much, you know. Come on, man, get it. What are you doing? Get it out.
Let's
and
go.
Then, thank God he's not taking it out.
Yeah.
what do you got in the works? What are, or can you talk about them? Do you have some secret projects, or do you have?
He's got a little sedan going on that's wicked. I know that.
Yeah, that sedan. That's a 33 Ford. What is that? There's so I started a 33 Ford that I called Public Enemy back when I had my child. He's 10. So it's got one of the first 50 Coyote motors in it, supercharged. And we chopped it on 2 guys, like way back in the day. And man, I just finally, with the new shop, I had room to pull it out and, you know, get it going this year. And a friend hooked me up with Langston Galloway, who's a Detroit Piston. And he's a neat guy and just seems to really enjoy all the details and the hard work of it. And he's like, hell yeah, man, I want that car. And so I sold it to him, and we've been working our way through it. We're getting pretty close to getting it ready for kind of a bare metal shoot that we're going to do for Wheel Hub magazine. And really excited, man. It just feels so good seeing that thing coming through to the end after all these years, you know.
That's pretty awesome. You mentioned Wheel Hub. We're actually going to have them on the show in the next couple of weeks, probably. Talk to Robert.
Good.
Yep, talked to Robert this morning, actually. So,
yeah, they're good.
I was just checking my notes. I was going, I think Will just brought that one up.
yeah, we talked about it before we started recording. Matter of fact,
it's a great magazine. For anybody who hadn't checked it out, make sure you look at it. They're doing incredible work.
Yeah, if you're not subscribed to that magazine, you're missing out for sure. I was actually the #1 subscriber of that magazine. I don't know how that happened, but it's pretty crazy.
So you're awesome. Customer 0001 type thing?
Yeah, 1 and 2, because I subscribed twice.
001 and 002. Will Posey.
Trying to think of what else is up for you, Brian. Car Fix, your only show. I forgot you did Two Guys Garage, because I used to watch before it became Two Guys Garage. It was Shade Tree Mechanic back when I was with, I remember Sam and Dave, was it?
Yeah, I saw Dave Bowman. I saw him yesterday, and he was making like a black powder gun, all engraved, and kind of a reproduction of a legit old, you know, I don't know, 1800s, right? I guess it wouldn't have been a rifle then, but 1800s gun that had all this inlay. Yeah, he's funny. I always see him around. He's down here in Tampa area, so he pops in on occasion.
When does the next season of Car Fix, the one that I guess you just began shooting, when do you expect that one to premiere? I know, or do you even know, because all the production schedules are so messed up right now.
I don't get into, when it shows up very much. I feel like June, but the show's been really good. We've had, they've really given us a lot of creative freedom to bring in our own projects. My co-host, Jeremy Bumpus, is a pretty cool dude. You may want to have him on someday. He's got a place called the Hot Rod Shop out of Mississippi. He was on one of the shows that RTM did out in Nashville for a while, and we got to be buddies in a pretty short time. He's a good guy and knowledgeable and funny, and so we've been doing. We just worked on my 38 Studebaker pickup this week, and one of the cool things we were doing was taking that McCullough supercharger. And a little trivia for you. So evidently McCullough, I thought McCullough and Paxton were like competitors back in the day. We couldn't find out Robert Paxton McCullough just started a different company after he sold McCullough. Then he started Paxton. Brilliant.
And
That's
he just
crazy.
So just never got around to building Robert superchargers, right?
Ran out of time.
Yeah, I never had to get to the Robert supercharger.
Now, are you still doing Caffeine and Octane locally in Atlanta, or do you even know? Because obviously we've missed the half of the car show season right now. But
yeah, we were going into season 5. We were just getting started, and went to Amelia Island this year. Was kind of living large, rolling the 67 Lincoln back from filming, and we just put 22-inch Raceline billet wheels on that thing, and man, they just look so sick. With got a Ride Tech air ride on it. Man, that thing works good. I mean, it's so badass. I've just never had such a great driving old car. I mean, my shit's normally like no AC and patina and like cheap air ride system, and all of a sudden I'm like, man, I got air conditioning, and the ride, like, you turn the key and the thing goes right to the ride height. You know what I mean? Like, this is crazy. I mean, so it's been really fun. Power windows, power seats. I mean, what the hell happened?
For the listeners that don't know, fill them in on exactly. It's like a 65 suicide door Continental, right?
67. I didn't know it until I got this car, but it's a 2-door. So they didn't start the 2-door until 66.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I was thinking it was that what do they call it? The Entourage style Lincoln. But yeah, you're right. Obviously, you're right. It's your damn car. So.
I wanted the 4-door, but they're just so much money. The 4-door, the convertible starts at 30 usually. And I had a deal with the guy in Alabama, and the dude bailed on me. So pissed. I actually sold my truck, sold my daily driver to get this thing. It was amazing. And then he just bailed out, disappeared.
Now we
must have been on Facebook.
I remember back, it's 20 years ago when I was at White Post, we were doing a 64, 65 suicide door convertible, and the top was, the top and all that is just such a nightmare on them to keep maintained and keep aligned. And it was this powder blue, which reminded me of what was supposed to be my high school colors before I changed school colors. And it was done powder blue because Pfizer was building it, and they wanted to match a certain pill that they had on the market at the time. And I guess that's where our drug company money goes. Get the CEO there a nice little Lincoln. Where are we?
Blue pill I'm thinking about. I'm sure they made plenty of money to buy a Lincoln.
Yeah. Well, it was probably appropriate to a convertible because it would go up and it would go down and it would go up and it would.
I was going to say it probably helped the top go up, and then after a few hours, the top would go down, and yeah.
The problem is when you can't get it to go down. You're like, oh God, I'm stuck in a storm and this thing won't go down.
Oh, so I'm trying to think of a couple other little things there that I had a whole list. I wrote some of them down. I'm getting better about writing down all of my interview questions and such.
It's all good.
And I'd say, where do we get to see you next? Any of that, but. What they just canceled something today. Was it you that was telling me that, Will? I'll be honest.
Yeah, they canceled the Woodward Dream Cruise.
Dream Cruise. Yep.
Yeah, which is in mid-August. So I mean, yep. This has just gotten out of hand. There may not even be a SEMA this year. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, we were talking.
Can we just cancel 2020? I mean, really? Can we just? I mean, this is ridiculous.
Our episode that came out Monday with Phil Sohn and his RX, we got talking, I think, after the show. I don't think it's part of the show, about what, I guess we talked about it in the show, and then we talked about it afterwards. And we were a little bit more negative on SEMA after the show and talking about, what would SEMA 2021 look like if everything from 2020 had to show up at 2021 along with everything from 2021. And is there enough space in Vegas, let alone the convention center, for that size of show?
By 2021, there will be. They got a new wing they're building.
Mm-hmm. So Will, you're gonna have like 6 cars ready for 2021, right?
Yeah, yeah. Probably would.
What was that, Brian?
I'd say I'd vote we don't talk about it. Talk about cars.
There we go.
Have you guys heard of Lincoln Land down in Clearwater area of Florida?
I know the name, but I can't remember why I know the name. But
it's like all the niches out there. It's one of the things I love about this industry is that, anytime you have some niche like 60s Lincolns, there's somebody or a couple of them that are just those guys. You know what I mean? They know every part. So when we were doing this car, and as you were talking about with the tops, there's limiting switches and relays and, screw motors and like all the shit that goes into the back of those convertible Lincolns. I met this guy, Chris Dunn, who has Lincoln Land down here. And he's one of those experts. And so I got to go there with the show. And, he has just sheet metal lined up, every nook, cranny, switch, emblem, everything you could possibly imagine for that little car. And one of the little facts, that he did that was interesting, we went to fix the window regulator motors, which go out a lot. And so they pull it off, like, yeah, they checked it, like, yeah, your gears are shot, they were plastic. They're like, plastic on a Lincoln? What are they doing? And in order to get the regulator out without pulling all of the motor assembly, you actually had to drill out spot welds in order to get to the bolts just to pull the damn thing out. Isn't that crazy?
I remember.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
I remember something like that, and it's it doesn't go back to, there's the designers and then there's the engineers and there's the mechanics, and it would be nice if they at least talked for 5 minutes before building the car. You get to that.
Yeah, they had plastic on the timing gears. So like the lower timing gear, we were already in there fixing a bunch of AC stuff. And I'm like, look, let's just switch out the timing chain, water pump, put a new ones in while we're already there. It's easy. And, my buddy across the street that worked on it, he was like, yeah, man, good thing you made that call. It had cracks all in this kind of nylon looking timing gear. I'm like, they put nylon on the timing set in 67 when everything else in the car is steel. I'm like, dude, what are you thinking?
Pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, pushing the boundaries of dumb.
Now you go back and call your buddy and say, "Hey, can you 3D print me a titanium timing gear and improve that slight little part?"
Nah, they're available. They're not too bad.
Yeah, but it's not custom.
Their bike.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead, sir.
Oh, I was just gonna say, think all the like cool stuff that you can do with that timing gear if you 3D print it that no one will ever see.
Yeah, it's probably, if you printed it out of tie, if I had to guess, that would be a $800 part. So I'm not sure. That's just one gear.
Well, you remember Dennis from Barbers. He's all his Facebook's been lit up the last couple of days with him milling titanium on his at-home Tormach, building his titanium watches. So titanium is just, he gets a chunk here, chunk there. It's not a big deal.
Well, the funny thing about tie is, why is it still so expensive? Aluminum was expensive to extract back in the day, but we got it figured out, and it became, inexpensive. And, there's plenty of titanium on the earth. So, I'm kind of predicting with the rise of the printing and, just the nature of the beast, that we'll get the refining figured out to where titanium won't be so exotic, just like aluminum is now. You could see in 20 years, titanium wheels rolling around all the time. Shouldn't really be that big a deal.
I was thinking you've got a point there. It's not quite as usable as a metal or as aluminum is. And we had David Pisciuto, who's a woodworker, getting into go-karting a couple episodes ago, and he makes new wedding rings every year for him and his wife on his YouTube channel. And one year he was working on using his wood CNC to mill titanium, and needless to say, all the armchair quarterbacks that you get on YouTube are saying you don't need to do that. And he learned that now you don't need to use woodworking tools on titanium. So it's a little bit harder, I think, to work with. But I think I never really thought about it. We've got more exotic metals, Inconel and things like that we can make as the more expensive cool metal. But maybe it's just the titanium has a good marketer.
Yeah, we're just starting a bike that. Are you familiar with a Kramer based on the 690 KTM?
No, I'm not.
So it's basically like a road race kind of kit bike. So you take a 690 KTM single cylinder, you can get it up to 90 horsepower roughly, and stock bike is 330 pounds. So the plan is we're making a titanium frame, titanium printed caliper. So I've actually designed my own caliper, which was really fun to do. So I made it really airy and open on the inside, and printed. We're working on printing triple trees out of tie, titanium sprocket, obviously exhaust, carbon wheels, hoping to get down to about 230, 240 pounds and 90 horse.
That'll be fun.
It's for fun.
So that's kind of pushing the limits there, but it's I just like I say, I love doing that. It's experimenting with that technology. And is the and I'm going to be rude here, I should have written down the name. Is the same 3D printing company helping you out on that one too, or?
Yeah, Orlicon, I believe so, but you know how it is. It's just when you're on the cheap list, you're also on the not so important lists. And so, if we get lucky between a SpaceX job and a, NASA job or something, and the printer's got a few hours that they don't mind letting a beggar, throw a part in there, then hopefully something will come out someday.
So like the triple trees, I know you talked about printing those. I think most everybody can relate of how big a triple tree is. So yeah. How do you know how long it takes to print a triple tree out of tie?
I would guess that just out of a hunch that each, you could print several at once because you can stack them up.
Right.
They have different machines. They've got a big facility there in hundreds. What's the big NASCAR area where
Charlotte?
it is?
Mooresville.
Yeah, Mooresville.
Yeah.
So, they've got one that's like 3 inches in diameter by 3 inches, a little one. And then they've got up to, I know some of the aluminums are getting up to at least 2 feet in length by, I would guess, 15 inches by 12 inches tall.
Wow.
So depending on the machine and, like what's going on, most of the ones we worked on were about a 12-inch box capability. So because of the way it works, you can just stack them up in there because you don't need a machine tool to work around it like a CNC.
Right.
And if you fill that block, I believe it was about 4 days when we did the part that was the most filled of that 12-inch square block was about 4 or 5 days, if I remember right. So
Wow.
I would say
Okay.
day.
Got you.
So what's the largest part, say, you had printed for the Futuristic? And is it in that? Is it? I'm thinking you probably printed the wheel hubs at multiple, or is it the swing arm? Or
The swing arm was amazing. I mean, that just was such a piece of art. Nick Pugh, who designed a crazy car called the Zeno, which is in the Peterson Museum right now. I worked on that car at SoCal, and that's how I met Nick. So Nick's a very talented art center grad. He's a futurist, and that's why it totally made sense to enlist his help. And so I came up with the idea that I wanted everything to look kind of like bones, kind of very organic, kind of bone structure, and really almost that generative design. But the problem with generative design is that it just has no idea what looks good. And it'll give you like 1,000 ways to do it. Like, there's 1,000 ways you could build it. And so we took that kind of generative design / organic, almost bone, like arm structure, and kind of combined it into this, kind of organic vibe. And that thing was 5 pieces. So we welded it in multiple spots. We welded the bars in about 5 places. And, I like to think that we're one of few people who had actually welded printed parts, because in industry, you don't really print something and weld it to another part very often.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So how did it weld?
Oh my God, it welds beautiful. I mean, the aluminum, it's very similar to cast, except for you don't have any impurities.
Right. So it welds like regular aluminum or titanium.
Oh yeah, it welds beautiful. I mean,
Nice.
And again, like, we polished a lot of those parts. We never found a single pit, not one.
Wow. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Just like cast, I mean, you bevel it, file it, get it clean, and then preheat it so you're getting some good heat in there, and put a big tungsten in and get ready to hammer down because it's going to take some heat.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're welding on cast aluminum today, as a matter of fact.
Yep. What are you welding on?
We're doing a Magnuson supercharger on a 572 crate motor. So we're having to cut intakes up and weld them together and whatnot. So we bought the LS3 hot rod kit from Magnuson and have basically destroyed a LS3 intake that Magnuson makes and making it work on this big block Chevrolet. It's kind of cool.
They didn't have a kit for that?
Oh, no. Magnuson don't have really anything unless it's, late model, fuel injected already. So
okay. We'll
be running like a Holley HP computer, building our own wiring harness and all that stuff. So
yeah,
it'll be a pretty neat little old car going in a 57 Chevrolet 210 post car.
That's cool.
Gonna go back a couple of years, Bryan, and it's a barber story, and I'll do it at the end of the show. So if all of a sudden this goes to pot, we can edit it out real easy. But you used to do the, you did a couple of welding classes or seminars, as they called it, during vintage festivals and that. And one of the things that, you're a nice guy, great guy. And I'm sure, I don't know if you know the whole story in that, but during one of those, this little kid came up to me and he was all impressed and enamored with you and the TV celebrity doing the welding. And I encouraged him, well, go sit into this, one of the seminars. And he was very shy about doing it. And him and his dad finally went and did it. And I know they befriended you in that series and that, that was Zeke. Are you still hanging out with him, or is he still around? I haven't seen anything. Huh?
Yeah, Zeke is awesome. So we built a bike together when he was 12, and he would come to Texas kind of during his spring break and in Christmas break and whatnot. And him and his dad were hilarious. So pudgy, big face, cute, kid. And now he's like 6'5", 6'6" now, of course. But yeah, we built this little CB 175. There's some videos out there, I think, on YouTube also with us working together on it. It was really fun. I mean, teaching him how to do sheet metal, teaching him how to, do this, that, and the other. And he was, he was shy at that time, but eventually he became pretty brash. He's like, I'm 12. I've been on TV. I got on Cafe Racer, my first bike, the Bostrom brothers, rode it. And he became like, blah, 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 and I basically told him one day, I said, hey, you little shit. I was like, you bolted a bunch of little stuff together and, you made a little tail on it, once you come to Atlanta, we'll do some full on, kind of work. And so eventually he was like, okay, this like complete custom tank, complete custom tail, cut everything apart. He was like, all right, so I still got a few things to learn. Went there.
I just always liked that story, and I never knew what happened to him. Obviously, me leaving Barber 2 years ago, and I don't think I saw him in the last couple of vintage festivals because I was so involved in the swap meet, and I was just kind of wondering what happened to him. And I understand. I know exactly how I would have turned out if I was 12 years old and on TV and things. I still
I don't know if he's going to go through with it. Well, we'll see. He's talking about coming to he's trying to get into the engineering, kind of the space engineering school that's down here. I don't know exactly which one it is, but there's some kind of program down here geared towards trying to get to space engineering.
Is that at Georgia Tech?
No, I think he's down here in the Florida area.
Oh, Florida. Yeah, that's right. You're not in Atlanta right now.
Yeah. They do that thing across the state from where you're at now, though. I think throw some rockets into space and that. So.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's in the Cape Canaveral area.
Yeah.
Just a little funny. Now that you mentioned that, a little side story. I was on Biker Build Off with my third bike, and Barber has that bike now, and so we got to go to Cape Canaveral for our ride. And I mean, what is it, like a half? I think it's a mile long, the landing. So we got to go onto the landing strip with a helicopter following us. And I always regret, because we're there and the producer's like, don't go too fast. So we're going like 30 miles an hour, right? I'm like, I'm on national TV on a mile-long landing strip on a drag-inspired motorcycle, and you're telling me that I can only go 35 miles an hour. And it was the beginning of the show, and I didn't want to be a jerk. And, I wasn't very far into my career, and I was like, okay. And I didn't go very fast. And I have regretted that for the last, 10 years, whatever the hell it was. Like, I should have just told him this, eat me, and I'm going to go. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's like the typical visitor to the Barber Museum who goes and wanders the whole museum and then decides right before they leave they're going to sit on the bike that they want, because what are you going to do? Throw me out? I'm leaving anyway. You already filmed the show. They've already invested all that tape. They might yell at you, but what are they going to do? But I think that's stuff we learn later in life, and as we get older, we don't quite care as much. Maybe that's why old people are so much fun.
Yep, no doubt.
Well,
we only get better with age. Yeah, we just start not caring, But no, I love John has talked about the story with Zeke in the past, not necessarily on the show, but I think that's really awesome that you did that, Bryan. I mean, it's for, I think really for the three of us, we grew up around cars and, met a lot of kids in my career so far that, the parents just don't have the knowledge or the understanding to, if the kids like cars, to try to do something. And, I always try to give kids an opportunity to sit in a car, to ride in a car, to do anything, teach them how to work on something whenever I can. And I think it's awesome when people are willing to do that. So yeah, I think it's a great story from your, kind of career that John shares, and just awesome that he's, continuing to do stuff.
Yeah, it's too bad there's a real gap, between, the dads who we see it a lot in my neighborhood, dads who want to do something. They want to teach their boys something or girl, and they don't know how. They don't know how to teach them because they didn't learn it.
Yeah, exactly. I had actually my previous job to the Corvette Museum where I am now. I had a mom and a 14-year-old, her 14-year-old daughter walk up to me after I did a talk about, automotive history and cars and stuff. And the little girl looked at me and she said, "Do you know anywhere where I can take a class on how to change oil and change tires and do the general maintenance that I have to do on a car when I start driving?" She said, my dad's tried to help, but he doesn't really know what he's doing. And standing behind her, her mom was laughing and looking at me and going, "Yeah, he has no clue what he's doing with cars. We don't let him around them." And it's sad that, it's not taught more often. I mean, the loss of even like shop classes in school, where they taught auto shop, stuff like that, is just really a disappointment.
Yeah, it's sad. We kicked around, it's just trying to find the time, we've kicked around doing kind of a summer course where, I talked about it with a neighbor. She does gymnastics, so she has a lot of girls obviously in her group, and I said, "Hey, what if we do a man kind of deal where we do a man card?" And they're like, "Well, that's very sexist. You can't get a man card." I'm like, "Why not? I mean, come on. If a girl wants to come get a man card, I don't care. Like, come on. You be a tomboy. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that." And, but at the end of the day, it's just trying to find the time to do it. But it sure would be fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I mean, I think some of the coolest car guys I've met are women.
So, well, we'll leave. That's probably a good point. We only asked Bryan for an hour, and we're a little bit over that. And I know he's on a busy schedule down there. It was great finally chatting with you, and I guess getting a lot of the questions I wanted to answered. Great to see that, again, that I wanted to did the Zeke thing because you're approachable, you're, a great guy, and you help. And if I remember right, is YOTech still around? Can people even begin to do, like, if they go, "Oh, I'm going to grow up and be him and I need to do this and this and this"? YOTech closed, did they not? Or am I thinking,
they've had a pretty tough run at it. I mean, there's a couple other schools out there that are other ways to do it, but I mean, it's a whole new world, and there's so much of this stuff that you can learn online. I think, in my opinion, what I've always told people, if you've got passion for any industry or art or whatever it is, just go get in on the bottom floor. Go in as a janitor, go in and sweep the floor. do whatever you've got to do. Find somebody who does it well that will teach you, and work your way up. And to me, that's the best way to get at it in any kind of trade or industry or job.
To do it right and do it well and actually mean something. You're exactly right. You've got to work your way to it. You can't just walk in, and if you just walk in and get it, I don't think, you're not as good as Will. You're not as good as you. You're not as good as Derek. Because I tried some shortcuts and it never worked for me. It opened some doors, but then I had to go back and learn really, really, really fast if I wanted that door to stay open. So
yeah,
we actually had a guy start Monday that has built some cars at home. Pretty cool stuff. Been a parts guy for 10 years and was tired of being a parts guy and come by and ask for a job. And old cars and hot rods and all that stuff's his passion. And I'm like, hell yeah, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
And if you're right, if you don't have a passion for it, it's definitely not for you. You gotta love it. And it's gotta be in your blood for sure.
Especially in this industry, because very few of us get rich out of it. We might do okay and have a cool car, but I don't think.
Well, that's being rich in our industry.
Yeah, true.
If you got a cool car and people like it, that's being rich.
Car
Amen.
rich, money poor.
No, I'm going to say that's going to be it for me tonight, guys. It's getting late. It's even later in Tampa. So, again, Bryan, thank you for spending a little bit of time with us. Glad I pursued you for 3 years, and if we get back to Caffeine and Octane or something, maybe I'll see you there if I make it over to Atlanta on a Sunday morning. If not, I'm sure I'll bump into you somewhere, maybe Vintage Festival this October. When it happens, we'll go with that. So.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bryan.
Thanks,
Take
Bryan.
Bye.